For the rest of this unit, I want to take you on a slightly longer detour through some slightly more recent, but also slightly more involved topics. But I think the main message behind them is so powerful that it's just interesting to look into them, even if at some points we'll not dig through all the technical details. That's the idea of pseudo-random generators. I guess the term will be familiar to programmers. Usually different people mean different things by calling something a pseudo-random generator. Programmers would understand pseudo-random number generators as meaning some relatively simple function that you give a seed, and then it generates randomly looking numbers. And certainly this is the term is inspired by this use, but we'll see that there's some important differences in the details. So you put some random seed in, and you suppose that this is chosen somehow with real randomness. In reality, it's often just the number of seconds since midnight. So it's not actually random by any definition of randomness, but it is different for different runs of the program. And so it could be good enough. And then it generates many more numbers. And one thing that these pseudo-random generators have is that they're actually a deterministic function of the seed. If you keep the seed, if you put the same seed in tomorrow again, you'll get the same pseudo-random numbers. And I think this is where the pseudo comes from. They're not actually random. At least if the seed wasn't really random, then the numbers certainly won't. Even if the seed is random, looking at a lot of those numbers will eventually reveal that it's not random, because they're simply computed from the seed in some more or less sophisticated way to look random. So often these are some linear congruential method at the very simplistic end. And then Mersenne twister is, I guess, somewhere in between, but no longer state of the art either. And you just try to build functions that make numbers that look random according to statistical tests. So usually here we would say a good pseudo-random generator is output passes statistical tests for randomness. And often these are relatively simple things. One simple statistic could be that the number of zeros and ones, if these are binary numbers, should be roughly the same. We don't expect it to be exactly the same. We expect it to be roughly a binomial distribution, maybe. And so it should roughly reflect that distribution. That's the kind of things where this is used, and that's often good enough for, say, numerical simulations. Now here we'll look at this from a different perspective. And to start us off, let's do the intuitive version first. Suppose we have an algorithm from this BPP class, which is a two-sided error Monte Carlo algorithm with bounded error. We also, and because it's BPP, we assume the running time is polynomial. That also means the number of random bits are bounded, because we can only use one random bit in each time step. So the number of different random bits that we can give the algorithm is also bounded. It's 2 to the number of random bits that I'm using. Every bit can be 0 or 1. That's all. So in principle, I can completely de-randomize this algorithm A by just running it on all these possible random seeds. Indeed, our probabilistic Turing machine model didn't even have randomness in itself. It just relied on having this random bit tape being filled with uniform random inputs. So we could simply do that and output the majority as before. Unlike before, this majority has to be exactly correct because we're trying all possible outputs and we're just picking the one that occurred most often. So if the algorithm is a BPP algorithm, bounded error, two-sided error Monte Carlo algorithm, then this majority must be correct. Of course, this 2 to the random bits is an exponential blowup. That means most of the time this is not interesting. But if, for some reason, the algorithm very scarcely uses random bits, specifically at most c times log n bits, then 2 to that is same as 2 to the log n to the c, and that's n to the c, which is just a polynomial factor. So if all we're looking at is, can we get a polynomial time algorithm from a polynomial randomized algorithm that's deterministic, then here the answer is yes, because that's, again, a polynomial. It's the product of two polynomials. So this sounds like a potential route, except, of course, most randomized algorithms wouldn't just use log n bits, because you can actually do very little with that. Essentially, you can guess one random number between 1 and n, or maybe a constant number of such numbers. But you cannot do many interesting things like guessing, say, a subset of vertices in a graph or anything like that. So typically, they use at least a linear number of random bits. So this seems not to work. The question now is, can we make it work? Because how would a typical algorithm even know whether the bits that it gets are truly random? And among programmers, there's this XKCD that's popular. Of course, randomness is a real tricky thing. Once you decide it, once you chose the random outcome, all randomness is gone. So what does this really mean to need the randomness? If you go back, I mean, maybe you want to philosophize and puzzle over this definition. If you look at what we need for BPP and the de-randomization here is actually quite clear. We just need that this de-randomization works, which means it's okay if the algorithm is somehow wrong or behaves differently for what we put in instead of the real numbers for a few of the runs, but it should be most of the time doing the same. Okay? From the perspective of this kind of more Byzantine working against each other, the algorithm and the pseudo-random number generator, the question of how the algorithm could distinguish random from non-random numbers should also be defined by, can you find a measurable difference in the outputs of the algorithm? So abstractly, we would somehow like to keep inputs that are sufficiently random, whatever that means. And a breakthrough idea in theoretical computer science was this notion of pseudo-random generators in the specific sense we'll see, where we essentially use that an efficient algorithm cannot distinguish them from truly random. And that's a key difference to the more practically focused view on pseudo-random numbers, where you say, okay, there's some statistical tests, and if these all pass, then probably it'll be fine. This is, in a way, more direct, but also more demanding. You say no efficient algorithm that you could possibly build can distinguish them. That, of course, includes all statistical tests. because all statistical tests I know are such that you can relatively quickly compute them. Maybe there's some that don't fulfill this definition. The key will be to pick a model of computation so that this whole machinery can be made to work. And that's why the whole chapter is a bit of a longer detour. But then the question still is, do these even exist? Like, is this, are we talking about the empty set? Maybe it's not possible to generate many random numbers from just a small seed without efficient algorithms noticing them. In particular, this phrase here may be a bit dangerous, right? If you look at what we want, we can deal with log n truly random bits, then 2 to the log n is still a polynomial with a constant. If you have a linear number of bits, that's exponentially more than log n. So in a way, we're trying to get from very few random bits a lot of bits, exponentially many more, so that you still cannot distinguish them by any efficient algorithm. Sounds like a wishful thinking land promise that maybe doesn't exist. The somewhat surprising answer that goes hand in hand with this theory is that we have strong evidence that these should exist or might exist. There's no proof, but there's also no proof that NP-hard problems are really hard. It's roughly in the same vein, and we'll rely again on some complexity theory assumptions, but is likely that they exist.